Long before the advent of recorded history, the ability to tie a knot was a critical skill, a silent testament to early human intelligence and adaptability. This section delves into the deep past, exploring the earliest evidence of knotting and its fundamental role in the very survival and development of the human species. The origins of knot tying stretch back into the mists of prehistory, far beyond what direct archaeological evidence can fully capture. Direct fossilized fragments of ropes and knots have been discovered dating back 15,000 to 17,000 years, placing their invention firmly in the Upper Paleolithic period. This makes them considerably older than the axe, which dates to approximately 6,000 BC, and the wheel, dating to about 5,000 BC further, a very small fragment of threple cord from a Neanderthal site, dated to 50,000 years ago, represents the earliest suspected rope, pushing the timeline even further back. Impressions of cordage found on fired clay from Pavlovi, Moravia, provide additional evidence of string and rope-making technology between 24,000 and 26,000 years ago. Based on indirect evidence, such as perforated objects, wear marks on artifacts, bone needles, and representations in ancient art, archaeologists speculate that the use of ropes and knots could date back between 250,000 and 2,500,000 years. This astonishing timeframe suggests that knot tying might even predate the controlled use of fire, which is estimated at 400,000 BC. It could coincide with the development of the first crude stone tools. The observation that modern apes possess elementary skills at knotting and ropework further suggests that the beginnings of knot tying may well have preceded the evolution of the Homo genus. Early ropes were likely naturally occurring plant fibers, such as vines, which were subsequently twisted and braided together to form more robust cordage. With the mastery of knotting, prehistoric humans unlocked a new realm of possibilities, transforming raw materials into indispensable tools for survival and daily life. From prehistoric times, knots were essential for a wide array of activities, including hunting, pulling, fastening, attaching, carrying, lifting, and climbing. Early applications included the creation of vital subsistence tools such as fishing nets and hunting traps, with the earliest evidence of fishing nets dating back to the Mesolithic period. Knots were also crucial for hafting tools, enabling the secure attachment of stones to sticks, to fashion spears and harpoons, and for the construction of bows. Beyond weaponry, they were vital for building shelters and making baskets, demonstrating their versatility in establishing early human settlements and improving daily living. The integration of knots into these early technologies led to a significant acceleration in human innovation. The ability to combine disparate materials, such as stone and wood, into more effective composite technologies was directly enabled by knotting. For example, a stone axe becomes far more effective when its head is securely lashed to a handle, and a spear gains lethal reach when a stone point is tied to a shaft. This capacity to securely join materials led to a combinatorial explosion of human technologies, where knots acted as a catalyst for the creation of countless other, more advanced tools and structures. This fundamentally altered human subsistence strategies, leading to more efficient hunting, gathering, and construction methods, and thus serving as a critical enabler of human societal progress. As human societies grew more complex, so too did the applications of knots, becoming integral to large-scale engineering, construction, and even the very act of defining space. With the rise of civilization, the ingenuity in applying ropes and knots expanded significantly. They were indispensable for monumental tasks such as hauling canal boats, dragging heavy stones along ramps, and the erection of large obelisks, a practice first mastered by the ancient Egyptians. The Greeks and Romans further developed their use in sophisticated cranes, lifting devices, and catapults, showcasing their increasing understanding of mechanical advantage. Beyond brute force applications, knotted cords served as primitive yet effective surveyors' tools for measuring distances and laying out precise angles. Ancient Egyptian rope stretchers, known as harpedon optai, famously used 12-knot ropes to form 3-for-5 triangles, a method essential for determining accurate right angles in the construction of buildings and monuments, including the pyramids, and for land measurement. The Romans also employed waxed cords for measuring distances, highlighting the widespread reliance on knotted lines for foundational engineering tasks. In addition to their utilitarian roles, knots found their way into the realm of aesthetics and architectural decoration. Ornamental knotwork, or interlacing patterns, originated in the Roman Empire during the 3rd and 4th centuries AD, particularly evident in Roman floor mosaics. This artistic application evolved with intricately figured stone ribs and sculpted ropes, sometimes adorned with knots, appearing as decorative elements in European architecture from around 1440 to 1515, as seen in structures like Utrecht Cathedral and Maison de la. This evolution from purely practical applications to integration into art and architecture reveals a growing cultural sophistication. The formalization of knot patterns and decorative elements suggests that knots were not merely functional tools, but also held intrinsic beauty and symbolic value. This development indicates a societal shift from a sole focus on survival to a stage where communities could invest resources and creativity into embellishing their environment, reflecting a deeper appreciation for the forms and meanings embedded within knotting. As civilizations rose and expanded, knots became indispensable tools for projecting power, navigating vast distances, and even recording complex information. This section explores their critical roles in military engineering, maritime endeavors, and early forms of communication. From the construction of formidable siege engines to the very symbols of conquest, knots played a surprisingly central role in ancient and medieval warfare. Ancient military engineering heavily relied on ropes for the operation of cranes, lifting devices, and catapults. The Roman ballista, a powerful crossbow-style weapon, notably used rope to sling bolts with great accuracy during the Second Punic War in 218 BC. Siege engines, primarily constructed from wood, utilized rope or leather to bind their components together, ensuring structural integrity under immense stress. Catapults and trebuchets, for instance, derived their immense destructive power from the stored energy within twisted ropes or bundles of twisted hair and sinew. Battering rams were frequently suspended within their frames by ropes or chains, allowing them to swing with devastating force against fortified walls or gates. Stone-throwing catapults, such as mangonels, relied on multiple ropes pulled by operators to launch their projectiles. Furthermore, counterweight trebuchets, which represented a significant advancement in siege technology, employed mechanical winches and complex block and tackle systems, all dependent on ropes to raise their massive counterweights. Beyond heavy machinery, knots were also integrated into military attire, as seen with sword knots on medieval sabers and Roman soldiers using knotted cloths around their necks for protection and comfort beneath their armor. The legend of the Gordian knot further illustrates the strategic significance attributed to knots. This ancient Greek legend, associated with Alexander the Great in 333 BC, describes an intricate knot tied to an ox cart in Phrygia. An oracle had declared that whoever could untie this complex knot would be destined to rule all of Asia. Alexander famously solved the problem not by untangling it, but by cutting through it with his sword, or, in an alternative account, by pulling out a linchpin to loosen it. This act has since cemented Gordian knot as a metaphor for an intricate or intractable problem, and cutting the Gordian knot as a phrase signifying a decisive, often unconventional solution. The integral role of ropes and knots in the construction and operation of ancient and medieval siege weapons, such as ballistae, catapults, and trebuchets, highlights their importance in military technology. The immense power generated by these machines stemmed directly from the tension and torsion created by twisted ropes. This implies that knots were not merely components holding structures together. They were fundamental to the very mechanics that allowed armies to breach fortifications and project military force. The narrative of the Gordian knot further elevates knots to a strategic level, where the ability to overcome a complex knot was directly linked to imperial destiny. This suggests that the mastery and understanding of knots were not just practical engineering skills, but critical components of military dominance and strategic thinking. The effective employment and counter-employment of rope-based technologies could directly influence the outcome of conflicts and the rise of empires, positioning knots as a silent, yet powerful force in the history of warfare. The vastness of the oceans presented humanity with its greatest challenges and opportunities, and it was here that knots truly came into their own, enabling exploration, trade, and the very measurement of distance. Ropes were absolutely essential for the emergence and widespread adoption of sailing vessels, fundamentally transforming human mobility and connectivity. The significant increase in international trade by sailing vessels in late medieval Europe led to a massive, unprecedented demand for ropes, spurring innovation in their production and application. Mariners, facing the unpredictable forces of the sea, developed an immense repertoire of knots, devising hundreds of variations for countless purposes, showcasing remarkable creativity and ingenuity in their craft. The enduring legacy of maritime knotting is perhaps best encapsulated by the origin of knots as a unit of speed. By the late 16th century, sailors began using a chip log to accurately measure a ship's velocity. This method involved tying knots at uniform intervals along a rope, with one end attached to a piceless-shaped piece of wood. This assembly was then tossed behind the ship. As the vessel moved forward, the rope unreeled for a specific duration, typically timed with an hourglass. The number of knots that passed over the stern during that period was counted, providing a direct measure of the ship's speed. This practical technique gave rise to the term knot as the standard unit of speed in maritime contexts, signifying 1 nautical mile per hour. Several essential mariner knots emerged as indispensable tools for seafaring. The bowline, often hailed as the king of the knots, is an ancient and simple knot used to form a fixed loop at the end of a rope. Its virtues lie in its ease of tying and untying, even after being subjected to a heavy load. It was first mentioned as the bowling knot in John Smith's 1627 work A Sea Grammar. This knot remains crucial for sailing small craft and serves as a primary rescue knot due to its reliability. The clove hitch is another ancient knot, documented as early as the 16th century. It consists of 2 successive single hitches, and is most effectively used to secure a middle section of rope to an object, such as a fence post. It is also highly useful for starting lashings in various rigging applications. The reef knot, also known as the square knot, is an ancient binding knot with a history spanning at least 4,000 years. It is used to secure a rope around an object and was commonly employed by sailors for reefing sails, which involves tying down part of the sail to reduce its surface area in strong winds. In ancient Greece, it was also known as the Hercules knot. The sheet bend, or weaver's knot, is widely used by sailors for joining 2 ropes, particularly those of different thicknesses. It is especially effective for tying secure and mendable mesh structures, making it a common choice for fishing nets. The Antria net, carbon dated to 10,522 cal. BP, provides the oldest archaeological evidence of the sheet bend used in fishing nets. Sailors' ingenuity extended beyond practical applications. They practiced knot work during long voyages, often creating rope mementos for their loved ones, symbolizing unbreakable bonds. Furthermore, astute sailors developed a sophisticated system of covert communication by weaving hidden messages into the knot patterns in their ship's rigging. Specific knots carried hidden meanings. For instance, the crown knot could signal imminent weather changes, the friendship knot indicated solidarity among allied ships, and the betrayal knot warned of hostile vessels. These intricate knot arrangements formed a silent yet powerful language, crucial for sharing vital information across distances at sea. The maritime environment served as a powerful crucible for knot innovation. The constant dynamic forces of the ocean subjected knots to extreme stresses, demanding increased security and strength. Unlike land-based applications, a knot failure at sea could lead to catastrophic consequences, directly spurring rapid and specialized advancements in knot design and application. This intense pressure led to a sustained drive towards more secure and stronger knotted structures, resulting in a steep increase in the technicality and sophistication of knots. The development of highly reliable knots like the bowline, clove, hitch, and sheet bend directly addresses these unique challenges. The adoption of knots as a unit of speed is a clear linguistic legacy of this profound impact, demonstrating how deeply integrated knots were into the very fabric of maritime life, enabling global exploration, trade, and even warfare. Beyond their practical and military uses, knots served a fascinating and often overlooked role as early forms of record-keeping and communication, demonstrating humanity's innate drive to organize and transmit information. The most famous example of knots as record-keeping devices is the Peruvian quipu, or quipu. This intricate system was extensively used by the Inca civilization for accounting, census purposes, and is hypothesized to have contained narrative information as well. Quipus typically consisted of a main cord from which thinner pendant ropes hung, all tied with a series of small, often dyed knots. One prominent hypothesis suggests that these bundles of knotted strings served as a form of writing, particularly significant given the apparent lack of a traditional written language among the Incas. Less elaborate knotting recording devices also appeared in primitive societies in China and elsewhere, suggesting that the quipu likely had pre-Inca origins. In China, knots are believed to have originated for recording information and exchanging messages before written language became commonplace, with references to this practice found in classical literature like the Tao Te Ching. Beyond formal record-keeping, maritime history reveals a unique and ingenious use of knots for covert communication. Astute sailors developed a system of weaving hidden messages into the knot patterns found in their ship's rigging, enabling the transmission of vital information to other vessels at a distance. In this silent language, specific knots carried hidden meanings. For instance, the crown knot could signal an imminent change in weather conditions. The friendship knot conveyed solidarity and support among allied ships, and the betrayal knot warned recipients of the presence of hostile vessels in the region. These strategically tied and placed knots became a powerful, nonverbal form of communication, woven directly into the operational structure of maritime navigation. The use of knots for Inca quipu, early Chinese record-keeping, and secret communication among sailors elevates their role beyond mere physical utility. The quipu's potential function as a form of writing in a civilization without a traditional script represents a powerful example of abstract symbolic representation. Similarly, the knot ciphers possibly guarded by priests, suggested by religious interpretations of the Gordian knot, and the deliberate encoding of messages in sailors' knots demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of how physical configurations can carry complex meaning. This reveals knots as a profound form of early information technology. They facilitated the quantification of data, the potential preservation of historical narratives, and the discrete exchange of strategic intelligence. This expands the understanding of knots from simple tools to complex systems of knowledge management and communication, highlighting their crucial role in the intellectual and social organization of human societies. Knots are more than just functional objects. They are deeply woven into the spiritual, magical, and artistic tapestry of human cultures worldwide. Across civilizations, knots have been imbued with potent, spiritual, and magical significance, often representing protection, healing, binding, or release. Knots are frequently perceived as ambivalent symbols, embodying both curative properties and the power to restrain, bind, or even strangle. This duality is reflected in everyday language, where knotting and untying are used metaphorically to refer to having or solving problems, as exemplified by the Cairo expression, "Did you get untied?" Meaning, did you solve your problems? Ancient beliefs and practices widely incorporated knots. Babylonian cuneiform texts from as early as the 8th century BC reveal the use of knots in spells. In ancient Egypt, the hieroglyph denoting protection depicts a series of knots in a rope. The jay's knot, resembling a knot used to secure divine garments, symbolized protection, binding, and union. It was often used as a clasp for jewelry and buried with the dead as a magical amulet. The tayet, or knot of Isis, closely associated with the goddess of magic, symbolized protection, renewal, and resurrection, frequently placed on mummies. Ancient Egyptian texts describe the practice of working heka as weaving or knitting, another form of knotting, and knots were tied around the deceased to facilitate their journey into the presence of deities. In ancient Rome, the Hercules knot was revered as a powerful talismanic symbol, believed to possess magical properties for protection and strength, and commonly incorporated into amulets and jewelry to ward off evil spirits. Pliny the Elder even noted a belief that wounds healed more quickly when bound with a Hercules knot. Knots played significant roles in various rituals of life and death. Greek brides sometimes wore girdles tied with the Hercules knot, which the groom would untie as a symbol of consummation and the beginning of their shared life. The Greek word for knot could also be translated as spell or charm. In Hinduism, knot tying was sometimes linked to death gods, with a common practice involving untying all knots in a dying person's room to prevent them from being bound to life and suffering. The pasha knot was notably used by deities like Krishna and Shiva to bind and extract souls or subdue demons. In contemporary Egypt, a wool cord with 7 knots, called an ukad, is used to combat fever, tied by a ritual practitioner who blows upon them. In Syria, brides and grooms carefully avoid knots in their wedding attire to ensure fertility and health. Mandean death rituals in Iraq and Iran involve leaving a girdle not unfinished until the moment of passing, and completing it after death. Tying a knot in one's hair was considered an effective way to ward off spirit possession in Sudan. The practice of tying textile scraps to trees near shrines or ancient ruins persists today, often done on behalf of sick individuals in hopes of healing. The widespread use of knots in spells, amulets, healing rituals, and rites of passage across diverse cultures suggests a universal human inclination to find meaning and agency through symbolic action. The inherent duality of knots, their capacity to both bind and release directly, reflects human attempts to exert control over unpredictable forces. Whether to ward off evil, promote healing, ensure fertility, or guide transitions like birth and death. The metaphorical understanding of untying problems further reinforces this symbolic control. Knots become tangible representations of abstract concepts such as destiny, protection, and interconnectedness. This pervasive integration of knots into ritual and magic underscores a deep human desire for control and connection in a complex world, demonstrating how these simple physical acts can become powerful conduits for intention and embody profound societal beliefs. Beyond their mystical properties, knots have been celebrated for their aesthetic beauty, evolving into intricate art forms that express cultural identity and philosophical beliefs across the globe. Knot patterns are universal motifs, found in diverse cultures, from the Americas to Hindu iconography in Bali, Indonesia. Celtic knots. These represent a prominent form of decorative artwork, believed to have originated from Celtic culture. With ancient artifacts and manuscripts found in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and other parts of England, they are characterized by continuous, intricate looping patterns that have no clear beginning or end. Their symbolic significance in Celtic culture often revolves around themes of eternity, interconnectedness, continuity, and spiritual beliefs. Historically, Celtic knots were used extensively in illuminated manuscripts, stone carvings, jewelry, and other art forms. Their origins can be traced back to interlaced patterns found in the late Roman Empire. Norse, Viking art, Scandinavian cultures also incorporated knot-like patterns into their metalwork and wood carvings. It's often referred to as Viking knots, possibly influenced by Celtic art. Chinese knots. Chinese culture boasts a long tradition of intricate knotting techniques, typically made from a single length of cord or thread. These decorative items carry symbolic meanings such as blessings, prosperity, and happiness. Chinese knots are often symmetrical and three-dimensional, used to adorn palace halls, daily implements, traditional jade jewelry, and clothing. Islamic art. Islamic art frequently incorporates geometric patterns and interlacing lines that resemble knots, particularly in contexts where iconography is prohibited. These patterns are found in architecture, textiles, ceramics, and manuscripts. Mesoamerican art. In ancient Mesoamerican cultures, such as the Maya and Aztecs, knot-like patterns were utilized in their artwork and hieroglyphs, often holding significant symbolic and religious meaning. African traditions also feature rich knot symbolism. The Umoya knot, also known as the Arawa knot or Yoruba knot, is a Pan-African symbol of unity. Popular among the Yoruba, Hausa, and Bushango peoples, it signifies the importance of community, unity, and collective development. The Nyan Sapo, or wisdom knot, is a West African Adinkra symbol representing wisdom, ingenuity, intelligence, and patience. Banta knots, also referred to as Zulu knots, are a traditional African hairstyle involving twisted and coiled sections of hair. Beyond their aesthetic appeal, they symbolize cultural pride, self-expression, serve as a protective style for hair health. The colloquial phrase, tying the knot, has deep roots in African wedding traditions, where the bride and groom's wrists are literally tied together with materials like kente cloth, braided grass, or cowrie shells. This ritual symbolizes an unbreakable bond and the couple's unity, often with an emphasis on God at the center of their marriage. The art of decorative knotting boasts ancient roots in Babylonian and Assyrian carvings, where it appeared as plaiting and braiding, adorning clothing. This knot-tying technique spread to Europe via Moorish influence, gaining popularity in England after Queen Mary II introduced it to her court in the 17th century. Sailors further disseminated globally through their practice of creating knotted objects during long voyages to trade or barter. Experienced significant resurgences in popularity during the Victorian era and again in the 1970s, adapting to different materials and styles over time. The widespread presence of knot-like patterns in decorative arts across vastly different cultures, including Celtic, Norse, Chinese, Islamic, Mesoamerican, and various African traditions, suggests that this motif is a universal form of cultural expression. The recurring symbolic themes associated with these knots, such as eternity, interconnectedness, continuity, unity, love, and protection, are fundamental human concepts. The fact that this motif appears even in Islamic art, where iconography is often prohibited, underscores its abstract nature, allowing for profound expression that transcends literal representation. This universality suggests that the act of interlacing and binding, and the resulting complex forms, holds an innate, perhaps even archetypal, resonance for humanity. Knots serve as a powerful visual language, transcending linguistic and geographical barriers, to represent abstract ideas about existence, relationships, and identity. This highlights how a seemingly simple physical act can become a profound vehicle for shared human experience and cultural heritage. The story of knots is inextricably linked to the evolution of the materials they are tied in. From the earliest twisted vines to the high-tech synthetic ropes of today, each advancement in fiber technology has presented new challenges and opportunities for knot design and application. The process of creating rope, from raw fibers to finished cordage, has evolved from simple handcraft to sophisticated industrial production. Driven by increasing demand and the need for greater length and strength, the earliest ropes were likely naturally occurring plant fibers like vines, which were then twisted and braided together to form more functional cordage. Initially, rope making was a time-consuming manual process, often resembling weaving. This manual work could be performed alone or by two people, with one holding strands and the other twisting them, sometimes even using a big toe to assist. For finer, tighter cords, finger twisting methods were employed, while a faster technique for producing mass quantities involved rolling fibers on the thigh. Early civilizations also developed specialized tools and techniques. The ancient Egyptians, from around 4000 BC, were pioneers in this regard, developing the first special tool for rope making, a handheld spindle. Similar devices later appeared in Europe and China, indicating the spread of this innovation. In China, a unique method for making bamboo ropes involved two workers on a high wooden tower cording long bamboo strips, ensuring they remained untangled as they hung down. A significant leap in rope production occurred around 1500 AD with the development of rope walks. These were long, narrow buildings, typically ranging from 300 to 500 yards, designed to mechanize and scale rope manufacturing. The sheer length of these facilities directly dictated the maximum length of the rope that could be produced. Notable examples include Le Corderie Royale in Rochefort, France. It's built in 1666. This impressive structure was the longest brick building of the 17th century, measuring 374 meters in internal length, and capable of producing ropes up to 246 meters long. The rope walk at Chatham Dockyard in the UK, constructed in 1790, is particularly noteworthy as it continues to commercially produce rope today. The basic process within these rope walks involved preparing fibers, spinning them into yarns, twisting the yarns into strands, and then winding the strands into the final rope. Crucially, each stage of twisting was performed in the opposite direction from the previous one to counteract the natural tendency of the fibers, yarns, or strands to unravel. The progression of rope making from simple hand twisting to specialized tools and then to massive industrial facilities like rope walks demonstrates a direct causal link between increasing societal needs and technological innovation in manufacturing. The demand for ropes skyrocketed in late medieval Europe due to the expansion of international trade by sailing vessels, Furthermore, the need for ever longer ropes was driven by advancements in navigation and mining. This escalating demand for essential materials to support expanding economies and technologies directly propelled the evolution of rope making, from a manual craft to an industrial process. This trend reflects a broader historical pattern of industrialization, where the scale of production adapts to meet the growing requirements of a developing civilization. The inherent properties of rope materials have profoundly influenced knot design, strength, and security throughout history, leading to continuous adaptation and innovation. Historically, ropes were crafted from a diverse array of natural fibers, including papyrus, bamboo, date palm, flax, grass, leather, and animal hair. Hemp emerged as a dominant material around 1300 AD, valued for its strength. Later, cotton, jute, and sisal also became common choices for cordage. These natural fibers, however, presented inherent limitations. They were susceptible to mildew, rot, and general deterioration, and exhibited poor abrasion resistance. To achieve sufficient strength, natural fiber ropes often needed to be considerably thicker, and their expected strength was less predictable compared to modern materials. For example, cotton rope, while soft and pliable, possessed very low strength and was easily damaged by abrasion or acids. The 20th century marked a transformative period with the introduction of synthetic ropes, a development often described as a game-changer for cordage technology. Nylon, invented in the 1930s by DuPont, was among the first synthetic fibers to be introduced into rope production, notably used for parachutes and glider tow ropes during World War II due to material shortages. This was followed by the development of other high-performance synthetic materials such as polyester, polypropylene, and Kevlar. Synthetic ropes offered significant advantages over their natural counterparts. They are considerably stronger, possess higher tensile strength, and exhibit superior resistance to rotting, mildew, and abrasion. Their manufactured nature also ensures consistent properties, leading to predictable strength and performance. Furthermore, synthetic ropes are lighter, more durable, and some types even possess buoyancy. While synthetics provided unparalleled strength and durability, they introduced new challenges for knot design and performance. Many synthetic ropes are notably very slippery and do not hold knots well compared to natural fibers. This inherent slipperiness meant that traditional knots, which were designed and perfected for the higher friction characteristics of natural fibers, often proved insecure or prone to slipping when tied in synthetic materials. The reduced internal friction of synthetic fibers means that the load creates tension that can pull the rope back through the knot, causing it to unravel. This necessitated the adaptation of existing knots or the invention of entirely new knot designs that could reliably hold in these slicker materials. For instance, the simple Simon-over knot was developed in 1989 by Harry Asher, specifically to hold securely in slippery ropes or ropes of different diameters, demonstrating a modern solution to a challenge posed by new materials. The shift from natural to synthetic fibers also impacted the understanding of knot strength and security. While knots inherently weaken the rope in which they are tied due to bending, crushing, and chafing forces, the exact efficiency varies greatly depending on the fiber type, rope construction, and environmental conditions. Modern research, utilizing tools like color-changing fibers, has begun to unravel the complex physics of why some knots are stronger than others, revealing that factors such as the number of crossings, the direction of fiber twists, and the sliding of adjacent strands all contribute to a knot's stability. This scientific understanding has become increasingly critical as high-performance synthetic ropes are used in life-critical applications, where knot security, rather than just strength, is paramount. The evolution of rope materials thus directly spurred a parallel evolution in knot design and a deeper scientific inquiry into their mechanics. The history of knots is a compelling narrative of human ingenuity, adaptation, and cultural development deeply interwoven with the very fabric of civilization. From the earliest suspected fragments dating back hundreds of thousands of years, predating the wheel and axe, knots emerged as a foundational technology that enabled early humans to survive, innovate, and thrive. Their initial role in hunting, fishing, and shelter construction rapidly expanded to underpin monumental engineering feats in ancient empires, facilitate global maritime exploration, and even serve as sophisticated systems for record-keeping and communication. Beyond their utilitarian functions, knots transcended mere practicality to become potent symbols in art, ritual, and mythology across diverse cultures worldwide. Embodied concepts of protection, healing, unity, and eternity, reflecting universal human desires for control and connection. The aesthetic appeal of interlaced patterns from Celtic designs to Chinese knots and African hairstyles demonstrates how a fundamental human skill could evolve into profound forms of cultural expression and identity. The continuous evolution of knotting has been inextricably linked to advancements in rope-making materials and techniques. The shift from rudimentary natural fibers with their inherent limitations to the high-strength, durable, yet often slippery synthetic ropes of the modern era has consistently driven innovation in knot design. This ongoing adaptation highlights the dynamic interplay between material science and practical application, ensuring that knots remain indispensable tools in an ever-changing world. Ultimately, the study of knots reveals an unseen yet powerful thread connecting humanity's deep past to its complex present. They are not simply physical ties, but conceptual anchors, embodying the enduring human capacity to solve problems, create meaning, and navigate the world. The history of knots is a testament to the profound impact of seemingly simple inventions, reminding us that the most fundamental technologies often hold the deepest stories of human progress. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. More than just a tie, the humble knot, often overlooked in daily life, stands as one of humanity's most ancient and profound inventions. From the seemingly simple act of securing a shoelace to the complex rigging required to moor a colossal ship, knots are ubiquitous, yet their incredible history and pervasive influence remain largely untold. This report embarks on a journey through millennia, revealing how these fundamental interlacements of fiber have shaped survival, enabled empires, inspired art, and even influenced the very fabric of human thought. The history of knots is, in essence, a profound reflection of human ingenuity itself, demonstrating how a seemingly minor technological development could underpin monumental societal advancements. The pervasive utility of knots often renders them invisible in their daily applications. Despite their commonplace nature, their foundational role in human development is undeniable. Evidence indicates that the earliest fossilized fragments of ropes and knots date back an astonishing 15,000 to 17,000 years, making this technology significantly older than celebrated inventions, such as the axe or the wheel. This remarkable antiquity positions knots not merely as tools, but as a primary enabler of human civilization. This exploration will trace the trajectory of knots from their ancient origins to modern innovations, examining their roles in utility, warfare, culture, and science.